Hello guys, what is happening and welcome to this live stream. I am back in the house here in Calgary. Oh my god, you think you're going away for a weekend just to get away, it's just an hour flight, everything's going to be quick and easy. No way. Traveling in Canada right now is a total disaster. But anyway, we're going to get into this article that's about HELOCs and what's going on there. Some interesting information that came out there. Also, they're changing some regulations. I'm not really sure if that's going to have much of an effect or not. I'll let you be the judge of that. Before we get started here, please hit the like button. It really helps get the videos out on the algorithm and helps you do your part on this channel and this community. So thank you for doing that, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. You get to participate in the chat only if you're a subscriber. So, all right. So basically, this article came out, which is about home equity lines of credit. So before we get into home equity lines of credit, let's just talk about how Canadians utilize them, and Americans utilize them exactly the same way as well. You can apply this. This is mainly like a North American thing, as I've found it. It's not common to happen in England, really, or in the UK, should I say. So here in Canada, like a lot of what people were doing to leverage their home equity is to take out a line of credit and go and buy a rental property. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Or does it? I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that. But it's basically become rampant throughout the past sort of 5-6 years. The home prices have gone up so much that people are using home equity lines of credit to renovate and flip properties. People are using home equity lines of credit to buy cars, you know, whatever. And a lot of these people don't ever intend on paying back these lines of credit. They're just literally paying the interest. They can't even afford the principal payments, but the interest payments have been so low whilst interest rates have been low. So a lot of people haven't even been paying off the principal. They've just been paying interest, and that's presented a big problem. And that has kind of rippled into a wild sort of speculation that we've seen in the rental market, not in the rental market, in the real estate market. Now, interestingly enough, when I lived in Milton, this is a little bit of a personal story. When I lived in Milton, we lived right by where they were constructing this massive new subdivision, and Milton was like a boom town. They were building everywhere. Places were selling out. Like there were lines down the street to get a place there. And I just could not get my head around it. It seemed insane to me what was going on. And I was just like, this isn't normal. I've never seen speculation on this wider scale. Who is buying these properties? So what I did was a couple of weeks before, I think they were completing at that time in the subdivision, and I decided that I was going to walk around and knock doors and just basically see if I can find out any information. Sometimes you have to do stuff like that to get the real information that you need to get, you know. And I compiled a lot of data doing that, and it completely changed my perception of the real estate market here in Canada. That was when the switch flipped for me, because I knew firsthand then and there that this was never going to last and was completely unsustainable. And that's because even the renters, and the renters were great. When the renters answered the door, I loved it, because they would usually give us a lot more information, and then I could contact the landlord and it would be easy. And they usually, people, you know, you just ask questions and they're willing to tell you stuff as long as you listen. You know, a lot of people talk their way out of getting a proper answer, and this is really golden. If you ever ask a question to somebody, shut up after you answer it. I hear so many people who just go on and on and on babbling when they're trying to, like, when they've asked a question. Once you ask a question, just shut up, just listen to the answer that you're going to get. and don't reply straight away and see if they continue on and on. And it's sort of a psychological trick, and it's something that I do quite often with people. And they probably think, wow, this guy's quiet, or he's not really talking much. But it's really just because I'm trying to listen and absorb what people are saying. So anyway, klutz of what I found out was 30% of the homes that were being sold approximately were going to investors. 30%. And that was back then. And I bet going into the pandemic and everything there, I bet that was obviously 50%. I mean, it could have got even higher. Like, speculation was just rampant. But seeing all these new builds, 30%, and a lot of homeowners were pretty open to telling me what was what. And I just couldn't believe that either. That really shocked me. And I guess it's just because Canadians are so nice, or whatever it is. I have no idea. A lot of the investors were Canadian, but they weren't from Canada. You know, a lot were from India, from China, but they lived in Canada. You know, the perception is that it's all foreign investors. And again, I experienced this firsthand, like maybe 3 or 5% were foreign investors. Most were, you know, not native Canadians, but they were speculating in the real estate market, and they were Canadian, like they lived in Canada, I guess you could say, or whatever. I didn't know their exact status. But yeah, I got a lot of information from doing that, and a lot of people wouldn't tell me, but some did. And when I said, like, you know, how on earth do you do this? I would always act like I was interested in doing this. It's just so funny talking about this now. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm so interested. How do you do it, man? Like, whatever. And they love that because it really gets them going. They're like, oh, I'm doing such a good thing. And if you can kind of gel with somebody like that, you know, just vibe with them, you're going to get so much more information. You never want to put out your stance, and I've said this in videos before, you never want to put out your stance in an argument first, because then people are going to be less inclined, just being nice and considerate, they're going to be less inclined to share the truth. And I've had that many times, many times, and heard many different things as a result of that. But yeah, like, people would tell me home equity lines of credit, home equity lines of credit, home equity lines of credit. And it got me thinking about, I was like, what is a home equity line of credit? Like, I didn't even know at that point, I guess, what it was from the name. But when I started looking into that, and I really didn't know how broad that went across Canada at that stage. I had no idea, because my little sample size of 100, 150 homes, whatever I managed to knock doors on in the 2 years that we were living there, you know, the data I had was limited. But this was all new homes, 30% of them being sold to investors. So you think about that, 30% of those homes off the market. So what that does is it means the first-time buyers are now competing with speculators, and because 30% of that housing stock is going to speculators, well, guess what? It makes the market very tight, and it makes prices skyrocket. And that's exactly what we've seen across Canada. But a lot of this wealth that we've seen enter the real estate market is fake. It's paper wealth. It doesn't really exist. It's attached to something. It's collateralized with people's homes. That's mostly what it is. And there was a guy at my old workplace, and he basically, when I worked in Toronto, he was basically telling me, and again, like, I was very new to Canada at this point, didn't really know much about the real estate market, but he would go on and on about the real estate market, and how the banks would just, I can remember vividly him turning to me and saying, Luke, did you know here in Canada, and this guy was Filipino, so he wasn't originally from Canada. He was like, here in Canada, if you have a home, they'll let you borrow against it, and then you can buy more homes. It's just like, I was just like, you know, everybody used to talk about real estate in Ontario. Like, real estate was the main topic of discussion. Like, what's your house worth? What's my house worth? You know, it's never going to go down. That was never the topic of discussion, even though I used to, you know, chat to certain people in that workplace, and I used to say, man, oh man, this is going to end really badly. It's just going to take a real bad recession, and then it's going to be game over for this. Once people start losing their jobs and they have to sell their homes, it's the end. It really is the end. And it's come like with massive inflation, and it's morphed into this super bubble, as Jeremy Grantham says, that we have now today. But I find it nuts. I find it really, really nuts that it's got this big. And it's not just in Canada. If you look at the United States, real adjusted prices for inflation, they are past the previous bubble in 2008. So again, people are sat on their hands in the United States going, hey, it's not a bubble, it's not a bubble, it's not a bubble. But look at the price chart, that really tells you what it is and what it isn't. And then you look at Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Ireland, so many different places. And there are so many different places that aren't in real estate bubbles, like Montenegro, Italy, you know, Panama. There's many. So, you know, it's not all real estate bubbles like we think. There are a lot of them in these countries that had massive episodes of stimulus and deficit spending, all this inflationary spending that swirled up into this giant monster. And really, it's impossible to see a way out, because the dollar value of this now has got so big that even the government is going to struggle to bail it out, if that makes any sense. So people who are wishfully thinking that the government is going to somehow backstop this market are wishing for a miracle. They're wishing for 1%. And that's the way I think. I think in probabilities, and I just think you are wishing for something that has slim to no chance of happening and has never happened in the past before. So all they could do possibly is kick the can further down the road, and then it would eventually implode at some point. But I think that can has been kicked so far that it has now become a can of explosives and fireworks that somebody has set the fuse to. So you can kick that can as far as you want, but it's going to explode once that fuse gets down and ignites those fireworks. So that's really where I see we're at. I'm really bad with stuff like that, coming up with analogies, metaphors, whatever you call it. Anyway, let's take a look at this article here, and I've highlighted some points in it. New real estate guidelines pressure owners with home equity lines of credit. Now, this isn't really what I want to cover in here. That's more of a side note that you can decide whether you think it's going to make any difference or not. I've heard people on both sides. But it's really other stuff in here that I found interesting from that survey. We got insights into how many people are using home equity lines of credit, which is important in my opinion. Those data points are important. So, released by BNN, Bloomberg, and Rates.ca, the survey found that 27% of homeowners who participated have assessed a home equity line of credit. Have accessed. Sorry, that's behind the camera. I could only see the C. All right, there we go. Fixed. So 27%, almost 80% of those participants have used it, and half of them said they have done so in the last 2 years, which is interesting, isn't it? Because that's been during the pandemic and the pervasive sickness. So a lot of people, you know, home equity lines of credit kind of mask the problem when you get unemployment, because a lot of people are going to dip into their home equity lines of credit. But, you know, the fact is we got this recipe right now where prices are falling so quickly, they're going to get back to like that 2016, 2017 level pretty quick, and the low pretty quick. And that means that all those people that bought after 2016 all those people are going to be underwater on their mortgage. So accessing home equity lines of credit is going to be a no-go, and a lot of them are going to get called in, as it says in this article. And somebody commented on the prior video, or one prior video, saying that a bank cannot call in a home equity line of credit. They can. They can also call in personal lines. These products are not meant to be sold as long-term credit things. However, they are marketed in very clever ways to get you to think that you can put a massive purchase on it because you can just pay it off over however long you want, unless the bank gets into trouble and the bank says, hey, we need to raise some cash. Start calling in those home equity lines of credit on the over-leveraged people because they're likely to default on them. And, you know, it all just goes bad from there. So it's interesting that they used it during the pandemic. In late 2023, borrowers will be required to pay principal and interest on combined loans above 65% of the property value. So that's quite interesting because a lot of people have maxed out these HELOCs on their homes, and that is going to be very interesting to see if that has any effect. I mean, how much principal? That's the first thing I would say. Is it just $1? Is it 1%? What is it? You know, so that's really, you know, so we don't really know enough about this to really make any decision. But let's say if it was a substantial amount of the principal, that could make a huge impact for a lot of different people. So I think that's interesting that they're doing this. But again, that's in late 2023. So there's a lot that is going to change between late 2023 and now. That is like 18 months away. So, and this whirlwind, I mean, it's going to be all over the place. So we can't make, who knows whether that will even last at that point. So, since HELOC lenders are able to demand payment at any time, this can raise concerns for consumers who have not set aside extra money to pay down their HELOC amidst the pressure of rising interest rates. So this is incredibly important because, again, like a lot of people rely on these HELOCs. A lot of retired people sadly rely on these HELOCs. And, you know, it is just a disaster. I have to be totally honest with you. Like, going to Vancouver Island this weekend has opened to my eyes of how this country is just deteriorating on such a massive scale that people are just blissfully unaware of. Especially older folks on that island just don't have a clue in hell what is going on. Whereas the younger people, they're actually more down to earth. You know, we were speaking to a guy in a coffee shop yesterday in Victoria, and I was just like, man, the cost of living is just crazy here, isn't it? And he was just saying, yeah, it is madness. I have no idea how I would afford to live here if it wasn't for my parents. I'm so thankful that they've got a suite on their house that I can use. But think about that, guys. Think about how many people are living with their parents. And, you know, there is labor shortages everywhere on Vancouver Island. So much so that businesses are closing down and shutting their doors. It is just a nightmare. And you've got a local economy right now and this is happening in other places. It's not just specific to Vancouver Island. It's happening in the Okanagan as well. I'm going there in October, so that'll be interesting. But it's happening all over. And really it's due to the failed gentrification of these areas where boomers have come in with their home equity, they've driven up prices, then you've had speculators come in, they've driven up prices, and the combination of these two factors has just sent prices to the moon. And then a lack of development is also attributing to factors in some of these places. But, you know, It is unsustainable. It's just completely unsustainable. And that is what I just cannot. People who live there, who think that this can just carry on and prices can just continually go up, good luck with that. Because what's going to happen when police don't want to, when they can't even find police anymore? You know, they're going to have to, enlist boomers who are 80 years old into the police force? Because that's what it's going to get to. I mean, there is so much staff shortages. Doctors don't even want to come to those places. And, you know, it's happening in places across the US. It's happening in many places across Canada. Healthcare system in Canada is completely just being annihilated. It's worse. It's you know, Canada's healthcare system was never perfect, but it was better than the NHS before this crisis. The NHS is the National Health Service in England. And now it's way worse. It's just way worse on like a massive scale. Like if I needed healthcare, thank goodness that I'm a UK citizen, because I would go back to the UK and use the NHS. I would not rely on the healthcare system here in Alberta. It is just trashed, absolutely trashed. I would go to Mexico, you know, wherever, Panama. There's lots of good places that you can get healthcare affordably. I wouldn't go to the US. It's not affordable there unless you've got mega expensive insurance. But, you know, it's just a complete failure, an absolute failure. And what do you think the impacts of this are going to be long-term for immigration? Well, we already know, because the points that are required to get into Canada has been dwindling down and down and down to less and less points since Trudeau got in charge. And that's because he can't get enough skilled people to come to Canada. So all he does is lower the score, get more unskilled people. And whether you agree or disagree, I'm an immigrant myself. I am pro-immigration for sure. So I'm not bashing immigrants, because I'm an immigrant myself. And that's why I feel like I have a voice on this, because people can't go, you're a racist, because I'm actually an immigrant. So screw you. But anyway, the thing is, guys, it's just an unsustainable path to nowhere. Like, I mean, boomers are going to be dying because they're not getting a healthcare service in Vancouver Island. They're going to have to make a choice between going back to the city or living there and shaving 10, 15 years off their health because they're not going to get the diagnostic treatment in time, or whatever it is. Everything is so backlogged and screwed. I mean, they're closing down emergency rooms in this country right now. This is just beyond insane. It's beyond insane. We have a clown in charge. We have an absolute clown in charge who is clinging on to power by drafting in the far left NDP. And these two morons throughout this pandemic have completely made a fool of themselves. I mean, let's take Jagmeet Singh, for example. He couldn't even follow the COVID rules in Mississauga. He was caught out there. So again, he's one person who's just like, rules for everybody else, but not for me, because I'm the elite and I'm young global leader of the World Economic Forum, Jagmeet Singh. He's on their website. This is all, you can just Google it. And these people are in charge blatantly with interests from these outside organizations, the World Economic Forum, which is entrenched into the EU. And, you know, the EU has significantly, you know, Canada's policies are going more and more towards the EU and further away from the US. And obviously Biden is not going to get re-elected. We know that for sure. It's just, he's a disaster. But the thing is, the US is probably going to go back to, it's likely going to be Trump. And Trump was nowhere near a perfect president by any stretch of the imagination. But it is just mad when you think about where we are right now. Anyway, I've gone completely off topic there, and I apologize. Like, I just lost it there because, you know, these things, when I went to Vancouver Island, it really opened my eyes, because I was just like, wow, it's screwed. If I could swear, I would swear right now. So it's just not going to continue like this. And people who believe it are just, they're in a mania. They're still in the mania. So according to the survey, 58% of respondents said they have an outstanding balance on their HELOC. Okay. So that's quite a bit. That's over 50%, obviously, but that's quite a lot of people that have an outstanding balance. So most people are using these home equities. So that is obviously something that plays into the hands of the banks, because the banks love to go, hey, do you want to, you know, I took a personal line of credit with my bank just to save the pet planet, because you know, they send me letters every single month. Luke, do you want $50,000? Do you want $100,000 line of credit? Like, it goes up and down, up and down. And I just said, yeah, you know what? I'll take the line of credit. So I stopped getting the mail. I'm never going to use it, but it's there anyway. But the banks know that when you take these lines of credit, you're more likely to use them. That's why they do it. The probabilities, if you have that line of credit open, of you using it, are higher than if you don't. And if you actually have to make an action, you have to go to the bank and open a line of credit for a specific reason, that's going to put more people off. You know, it is all about ease and convenience when it comes to a lot of things. You know, it's like if I say there's a link in the description or whatever, like the amount of people in reality that are going to go to the description of this video and look for that link is very, very low. And that's just because the inconvenience of doing so, people just don't want to do it. And it's the same probabilities at play when it comes to products and these types of products. They know that when you get these products, you're more likely to use them, and they play with those probabilities, and the house always wins because they're getting the interest at the end of the day. But the risk that they've took on with these home equity lines of credit is just phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's like magic. It's like Harry Potter style magic. The amount of risk the banks have got across Canada, the US, New Zealand, Australia. You know, although the majority said they borrowed less than $50,000, 10% said they borrowed more than $100,000. Think about that. 10%. That is a lot. That's a large number. $100,000, that's quite a bit. And those people, let's face it, you know, I didn't see any mention of using home equity lines of credit for in this survey. They didn't even ask the question about that, which I thought was kind of weird, because I guess if somebody had used it for a down payment, they would have mashed it into the renovations, because they were obviously only giving out certain things you could answer with, which I think is weird that they left that out, because that is one of the most common things that people use it for, is a down payment for a rental property. And we've discussed this before, because this totally screws up the risk modeling of the banks and the whole entire financial system. Even the Bank of Canada, even the people at the Bank of Canada, they don't have a clue about this. They have no idea. We are smarter than them. You and me are smarter than the Bank of Canada, because we know this. So, for example, somebody goes out, they take $100,000 out of their home equity line of credit. They keep it in their account for 3 months. 3 months. Bankers have confirmed that. So I know that for a fact, and I've experienced that myself. So 3 months, that's all you need in Canada, and then the bank isn't going to ask where you got the money, so you can just use that money. They're not going to say if it's coming from savings, you know, you can, they're not going to dig into that at all. Even if they do ask, you can just say whatever. They don't need any definitive evidence about it after 3 months. So people take out the $100,000. The bank doesn't know that it's debt, because it could have come from another bank and been transferred over. The bank has no idea that that money has come out of another asset. That it's essentially paper wealth or unrealized P&L. That's essentially what it is, an unrealized profit. And people are taking it and spending it, which is just madness. But anyways, so these people go and they go and buy this property with a 20% down payment. The bank's like, well, you got 20% down, so this is your TDS score, this is your FICO score in the US or whatever it is. So they're going to look at people and analyze based off as if they've just put $100,000 cash down. Even if that is a home equity line of credit, they won't know about it. And it gets even worse than that, because so that completely throws the bank risk models out the window, because now they've got people with 100% LTV, like they put zero down, and that's what the title of this video is about. They put zero down on a property, yet they have this property 100% finance. And the banks, they don't know that. They think that they put 20% cash down. They don't know another financial institution has a claim to that money, that essentially that could be called in at any time. And that person could be completely wiped out by a liquidity event. Like, let's just say the financial system starts going down. Let's just say it starts sinking. There's some sort of black swan event that happens, and the banks suddenly need to raise cash. They need to raise cash because they are losing tons and tons of money. People are defaulting badly, so they start to turn to call in lines of credit and raise capital. And basically that person's line of credit gets called in, and guess what? They can't sell their house because it's a illiquid real estate market. And we know everything in Canada, Australia, most things in the United States, all over the world in these Western countries depend on real estate. So they depend on real estate. So if real estate is going in a downturn and it's illiquid and they can't sell the house, well, that's a big problem. They can't get that money. So then they go into default, foreclosure, and, at some point, somebody's got to write off that money as a credit loss. So it is just, the banks are taking on all the risk. The average people have worked out a way to work the system to their advantage. And granted, it's made a lot of people a good amount of money. It's been greedy, but people have worked the system. They've done it in the US too, and they have used it to their advantage. But the problem is, none of these people can see a wave coming, because most people, I read a book, I'm trying to remember the name of the book, I'll forget, but it said 67% of people, or 69% of people, suffer from the normalcy bias. So if you take a sample size of people, 67% of those are going to suffer from the normalcy bias. So what is the normalcy bias? Well, it's essentially like there's a massive tidal wave, this tsunami that you can see on the distance, and you're sat on the beach going, it's not coming. Or there's a big storm you can see rolling in, and you're sat on the beach going, the wind's blowing a different direction, it's not coming this way, or it's coming really slowly. Like, it's just when you literally underestimate the size of something, even though it is obvious. It is obvious because you are part of that tidal wave, in the sense that you took out this leverage. You just, for some reason, think that you're special. You're mommy's little special guy, and you're going to be protected when this tsunami comes in. And the spoiler alert is, you're not. You're going to get completely trashed. You're going to end up declaring bankruptcy. You're going to get foreclosed on. The bank's going to take your house. Your family could possibly end up on the street, all because people got too greedy. They got blinded by greed. And we saw it just so vividly in 2021. Anybody like me who's looking at what people were doing saw it so vividly. Nobody had a clue. I can remember talking to somebody about buying an Airbnb in Canmore, and this was an idea we explored like 4 or 5 years ago. And they were talking about buying one last year when prices had gone up loads there. And I was like, dude, you do realize like Canmore is dead against Airbnbs. They're clamping down on that. And the guy was just like, nah, it's going to be all good. Like, whatever. People are traveling. Like, I'm going to make this much money. And again, the normalcy bias, just underestimating the risks as usual. So, and that guy was using home equity to buy that, just as so many people do. And if it's not home equity, they've refinanced their house. And then if they've refinanced their house, like what's going to happen when they're completely underwater on their mortgage? Because so many people are going to be underwater on their mortgage. And then we haven't even got to the point where the fixed rates are coming up for renewal right now, and people aren't going to qualify. Like, legitimately, you have somebody who had, like, let's say a $500,000 loan. They might not qualify for that mortgage at 5% anymore, stress tested at 7 or whatever, especially if they bought before the stress test was even put in place in whenever it was, 2016, 2017 it came in, I think. So you're going to see those people are going to have to go, wow, we're going to have to sell. So they go to sell into an illiquid market, as we said, and they can't sell. And this just leads to inventory starting to pile up, and people have reasons to sell. They can't renew their mortgage. They're in trouble. They lost their job. You know, the whole economy depends on this bubble, and it's deteriorating fast, and the economy is the lagging factor. That is going to deteriorate as well. Layoffs, unemployment, all these cancelled projects. I've heard a lot of people grandstanding these cancelled projects, Toronto realtors, on FinTwit. And they've been saying, oh, you know, they're cancelling all these projects. The supply is going to be limited. And I'm just like, are you that stupid? Like, can you seriously not even think? So think about all the jobs that aren't being created as a result of that project being cancelled. If all the projects are being cancelled, where are all the people that are going to work on all the projects going to work? It's just, so what happens to them? What happens to them? They lose their job. They can't pay their mortgage. They end up losing their home. You know, I mean, people are just so stupid when it comes to, and there's a complete oversupply in places like Toronto and Vancouver of high rises. You know, a lot of this stuff is just sitting empty. Well, not a lot. I shouldn't generalize like that. Maybe 10, 20% of it. But that's still like a substantial amount of units sitting empty. I've filmed a video in Vancouver Island, which is going to be good, I think. Which usually means it's going to be terrible. Every time I think a video's going to be good, it's just terrible. But it's about Airbnbs. And nobody is covering this. But Airbnb is just going to be flipped upside down because people just cannot keep these going. They have no clue what they're into. They don't realize that they think they're part of the real estate investment space because that's what their realtor told them. So they think they're, you know, I don't know, Grant Cardone, and they're really just Alec Baldwin. That's the first name that came to my head. That's just terrible. But I don't know. But these people, they have no clue that they're part of the travel industry. And as the travel industry the travel industry gets massively affected during recessions, massively. So, you know, all these people with Airbnbs, and there's such an oversupply of Airbnbs right now. So much so that it's cheaper. It's getting to the point in most places now where it's cheaper to book a hotel than an Airbnb. So the trends have flipped. It used to be easier. I mean, it used to be cheaper to book an Airbnb than it was a hotel. Now it's the other way around. And there's a complete oversupply of this. So we are going to see that trend reverse. They're going to go to rentals. A lot of them will be flipped to rentals because they can't sell them. So that'll mean rental inventory goes up, pushes rent prices down. That means people, again, are just more underwater, like all those people who bought in 2021. Like, if they aren't selling, I don't know what they have been drinking, but they seriously need to talk to maybe a psychiatrist or a therapist or something, because I'm telling you, those people are a serious risk. Those are the most at-risk people. Anybody buying now, even the people buying now, they are the most likely to lose their homes. And that's the way it went in 2008. You know, Scott will come on and talk about this, and he says that, you know, buying the dip in 2008, that's what he did. And he was lucky because of his experiences, and I really can't wait to discuss that with him. But his experiences were incredibly important, and go check his channel out because it's fantastic. He gives great real talk on there as well. But, you know, it's what he says. Like, when he bought in 2007 or whenever it was, real estate had already started going down. He thought he was buying at a cheaper price. The property had declined significantly in value that he bought. So he thought, can't lose, like a lot of people are going to think right now. But he ended up short sailing it, and he was lucky because most people, they ended up losing their home. They didn't have the fortune that Scott had to know and be connected and know the right things to do. And he's an incredibly smart guy for doing that. And that's why we got to get him on to chat about that stuff. But, you know, I just think it's nuts. Like, where we are has just, it's mind blowing. You know, I've gone off on one so badly tonight. I'm so sorry. So there's not much left of this anyways. We've pretty much gone through the whole thing. Yeah, we have gone through the whole thing. What am I on about? So that's pretty much it. But, you know, where we are right now is just propped up. Like, if you imagine the foundation of this golden building is just little thin sticks. And one by one, they're just being chop, 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 chop. And eventually the whole thing's just going to collapse on its own weight. That's where we are right now. And, you know, for people who think this time is different, well, I beg to differ, because we've never, ever seen real estate prices reverse this quickly. It wasn't ever seen in the United States either, the reverse this quickly. So it's going to be insane. And in the US, I was watching a video that Steve sent me. Shout out to you, Steve, if you're watching this. He emailed me a fantastic video about what is going on in the US with cars. Like, cars, repo rates of cars have skyrocketed. And I've seen similar trends here in Alberta because I monitor the repo yards. And this is one thing you can do to keep a heartbeat on what's going on with people in your market. Check out what's going on at the repo yards. There might even be some opportunities that come along. That's what I'm always on the eye out for, looking at the repo yards. But repo rates have skyrocketed of cars, and first go the cars, then go the homes later. So people are in trouble. They are in trouble. The restaurants, they might still be busy now, but believe me, it's all going to hit the fan quicker than anybody can say. Fan. Oh, it's so bad with stuff like this. I'm really tired actually, but I don't know. We got back at like 1 a.m. last night. The flight was super delayed from Victoria because of the staff shortages everywhere. Thank goodness we didn't have checked luggage. If you're traveling on flights, I recommend taking just hand luggage, because that's going to cut you down, because the airport's ground staff is short. So you'll be waiting for your bags for hours like we were when we got back from Mexico. So thank God I'm not flying till December. By then we'll probably be in a recession, so a lot of people will be cancelling their travel plans. I just hope my flight doesn't get cancelled. Please, please, because I want to get out of here in December. Quick. So anyway, we're looking at going to, I'm looking at going to Panama for 2-3 weeks in January. We're going to Mexico a couple of times over winter. We're going to the Okanagan in October. So that'll be interesting to see what's going on there, talking to people, because I mean, that has been a place of wild, rampant speculation, as somebody commented on this before. So, yeah, crazy crazy times. Inflation is running at 20%. Don't believe what the government is telling you. It's real. And, you know, a lot of realtors, Steve Saretsky, many others, not just him, not just to focus on him, but there's many others who said real estate was a great inflation hedge. That only works when wages grow with inflation. They just didn't look into that part. And that's what I see with a lot of these people, unfortunately. They don't read past the headlines. They don't do any research into the back end of things. And they remind me of the government. They really do. It's like they're an extension of the arm of the government in a way. But anyway, thank you so much, Trent. Yeah, that's an honor. I'm not the Canadian George Gammon, but I am a big fan of George Gammon, and I think his work is incredible. And go check out some of his recent videos, because he's done some great videos on what's happening in real estate on his Rebel Capitalist channel and on his George Gammon channel. He's also on Spotify as well, so he's got a podcast there, so you can listen there too. Great guy to listen to. So it's really, really crazy. Thank you so much, Robert. I really appreciate the kind words there. And you know, yeah, it is never repetitive. I was thinking about this earlier, guys. You know, the thing is, every week, like, I always plan to do as many live streams per week as permits, but normally there is either something going on that I feel like is something good that I found, because I'm always looking at this. Macro is a passion of mine, and this is the thing that people don't understand, is macro plays right into the trading that I do. So it is vitally important for me to stay in tune with everything. And I love it. I love it. A lot of people hate it, find it boring. I love it. So I'm always looking at stuff. And I always find something that I've learned that I feel like I want to teach back, and that helps me learn it and retain it even more. So, you know, I can't be more thankful of you guys for being here and watching, because to be honest, like, sometimes it feels like, I don't know, like, I just feel crazy that we've even grown the channel to what it is right now. Like, I honest to God cannot believe where we are right now. Like, Ken, shout out to Ken, has been here since the very start. Trent, many of you been here from the very start. Revert to Means, check out his channel, great channel. You know, many people have been here from the start. And Ken was saying, you'll be at 1,000 in no time. You'll be at 2,000. You're going to 100,000. And I was like, no way, this isn't happening. And, you know, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the growth isn't why I come here. I come here to give back to everybody, and to also help myself, help you guys, because by teaching and talking about a lot of this stuff, I will retain it even further, even deeper in my mind. And that's why I always say, like, reading a book twice, 3 times, you're just going to retain that information so much more. Tony Robbins talks a lot about that sort of stuff. Tony Robbins, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. If you want motivational content, check out Tony, because, again, I got to him through word of mouth, because somebody said they walked on fire in Canada, and I was like, what? You walked on fire? Like, what the hell's that all about? So I looked on Spotify, checked him out, and then, man, I ended up going to UPW and doing all the same things. But, you know, Tony is an absolute inspiration. And, you know, eventually, guys, I'm going to start probably a side channel to help people learn how to trade who want to become remote. And I'll probably do it at a cost, because I think that sort of thing, if you do for free, people are just going to ridicule you. Like, there's got to be some small cost to it so people actually invest in it, so you get serious people. But I really want to give back in that respect as well, because, you know, trading unlocks financial freedom, and really it's all about psychology. And It's all about how to handle losers. And it's nothing like you see on YouTube. You Google trading on YouTube or put it on in YouTube, it's going to come up with get $1,000 in 5 minutes, you know, $500 in 5 minutes or whatever. It's really not like that. Nobody teaches it the proper way. So I feel like I got a duty to do that as well. So, you know, there's loads and loads and loads of stuff. And again, teaching all that stuff helps it embed in myself even more. So, you know, if you ever learn something new, try and explain or teach it to somebody else, because you're just so much more likely to retain it. So really, really important, I believe. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, so thank you so much, guys. Please hit that like button and do your bit. 80 of you on here, or however many there is. There's probably been hundreds, it tells me after I end the stream. But thank you so much for being on this live stream. I think we may have hit a new record of the amount of people on a live stream. So thank you so much for that. And I will see you in the next one. Keep it real. Peace, guys.